Last summer, an HOA built a private waterfront sign on my family's shoreline. The problem? My grandfather owned that lake before their neighborhood even existed. Pause. They thought I was just some quiet old man living alone in a cabin. So they built docks, claimed my shoreline, and started selling million-dollar homes using MY water. Pause. But what they didn't know was that my grandfather left behind one document powerful enough to strip every single homeowner of their lake access. Pause. And the day I pulled it out in court, the entire HOA went silent. The exact stretch of land my grandfather used to fish from before sunrise every summer morning for nearly 40 years. I spoke carefully. You sure about that? The older worker pointed toward the southern hills, where the Silver Pines development sat beyond the trees. We're working for the HOA. As soon as he said it, something cold settled in my chest. Not anger, not yet, just realization. Because suddenly, dozens of small moments from the past 6 months started connecting together in my head. The new golf carts driving farther north than they should have. The residents setting chairs near private docks. The unfamiliar boats drifting into restricted coves. The security guards asking local fishermen unnecessary questions. At the time, I figured it was carelessness. Now I understood. These people genuinely believed the lake belonged to them. The younger worker began digging the first hole. I walked closer. Who approved this? He shrugged. HOA board. That's not what I asked. The older man finally paused long enough to actually look at me. For a moment, I could see uncertainty cross his face. Maybe it was the tone in my voice. Maybe it was the fact I wasn't yelling. People expect shouting when there's conflict. Calmness unsettles them more. You'll have to call the association office, sir, he said carefully. Then he added the sentence that changed everything. This whole shoreline is listed under Silver Pines waterfront access now. I looked at him, then at the half-installed sign. Then at the water behind them. The lake stretched across the morning light like polished glass, quiet and enormous beneath the drifting fog. 3,100 acres of water, timber, coves, and shoreline. My grandfather used to say the lake breathed differently at sunrise. Standing there that morning, I swear it felt like he was right. The first sign went up on a Thursday morning. I remember because Thursdays were usually quiet around the north shoreline. The fishing boats from town rarely came that far up the water during the week, and the wind always moved slower through the pine trees before noon. It was the kind of silence my grandfather used to call honest silence. The kind you could sit inside for hours without feeling lonely. That morning, I was repairing one of the old cedar posts near Dock 7 when I heard engines rolling down the gravel path. Not one truck. 3. I looked up slowly. White utility trucks. Clean enough to belong to contractors who charged too much. 2 men in reflective vests stepped out carrying metal poles while another unloaded a large wrap sign from the back. At first, I honestly thought they were lost. People got turned around near the north shoreline all the time, especially the newer residents from Silver Pines. Their neighborhood sat on the southern edge of the lake where the developers had built rows of enormous lakeview homes with stone entrances and decorative lanterns that looked more suited for a luxury resort than a small county in northern Michigan. Most of those people had only lived near the water for a year or 2. I'd lived there my entire life. My grandfather had lived there before me. And his father had bought the first section of shoreline before paved roads even reached the county. So when I saw those men unloading equipment directly onto my land, I wiped my hands on a rag and walked toward them calmly. "Morning," I said. One of the workers nodded politely, without stopping. "Morning, sir." I looked at the wrap sign. "What's going up there?" The younger worker checked a clipboard. "Community waterfront marker." I stared at him for a second. Then I looked beyond them toward the shoreline. Toward my shoreline. I walked past the workers toward the edge of the dock and stared across the water. I could almost see him standing beside me again. Old canvas jacket. Coffee thermos in one hand. Fishing line in the other. "You protect the shoreline," he used to tell me. "Because once people think they own peace, they'll destroy it trying to control it." Back then, I thought he was just talking about developers. Turns out he was talking about people like the Silver Pines HOA. Behind me, metal clanged against concrete. The sign was being installed. I turned around slowly. "Take it down." The younger worker froze. The older one sighed. "Sir, we already have authorization." "No," I said quietly. "You have instructions." Silence. The wind moved softly through the pines. One of the workers shifted uncomfortably. "You the property owner?" I looked at the shoreline around us. Every cedar post, every weathered dock, every narrow access trail cutting through the trees. "My family's owned this lakefront since before your company existed." That got their attention. The younger worker lowered the drill. But before either of them could answer, another vehicle approached down the gravel road. Black SUV. Polished. Expensive. And somehow already annoying before it even stopped. The driver door opened. A woman stepped out wearing a cream-colored coat despite the warm weather. Perfect posture. Perfect hair. Perfect expression carefully designed to appear friendly without ever becoming warm.
Victoria Ale.
President of the Silver Pines Waterfront Association. I'd only spoken to her twice before. That was enough. She smiled as she approached. "Mr. Carter." I nodded once.
Victoria.
Her eyes moved briefly toward the workers. "Everything all right here?" "They're putting a sign on my shoreline." She gave a small laugh like I'd misunderstood something simple. "Well, technically this area falls under the Community Access District now." "Technically," I replied, "it doesn't." For the first time, her smile tightened slightly. Behind her calm expression lived the kind of person who believed confidence could replace permission. People like that usually did well in meetings, until they met paperwork older than their ambition. Victoria clasped her hands together. "I understand these transitions can feel personal." Transitions. The lake is becoming part of a larger community identity. I almost smiled at that. Community identity. Interesting phrase. Especially when used by someone whose community had existed for 14 months. "My grandfather protected this shoreline for 50 years, I said calmly. "And my residents," she replied, "have invested heavily in the future of this area." There it was. The word. Invested. To Victoria Hale, ownership wasn't history. It wasn't stewardship. It wasn't legacy. It was money. The workers stood awkwardly nearby, pretending not to listen. I stepped closer to the unfinished sign. "What exactly does it say?"
Victoria gestured politely.
The younger worker peeled the covering away. Large polished letters reflected the sunlight. "Private Silver Pines Waterfront. Resident access only." For a moment, nobody spoke. I stared at the sign, then at Victoria, then back toward the water. And suddenly I understood something important. This wasn't confusion. Confusion would have been residents wandering too far downshore. This was strategy. Someone had printed brochures, filed maps, ordered signs, held meetings, approved installations, all without speaking to the man whose family legally owned most of the shoreline. Which meant one thing. They believed they could pressure me into accepting it later. Victoria studied my face carefully, probably expecting anger, threats, maybe shouting. Instead, I asked a simple question. "Who told you this land belonged to the HOA?" Her expression barely changed. "Our legal review was very thorough." That answer told me everything I needed to know. Not because it sounded confident, because it sounded rehearsed. And rehearsed answers usually hide weak foundations. I nodded slowly. Then I looked at the workers. "You boys should keep your receipts." Victoria frowned slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means," I said calmly, "someone's going to pay for removing that sign." The air changed after that. Subtle, but noticeable. Even the workers felt it. Victoria's smile returned, though colder now. "I'd advise cooperation, Mr. Carter. And I'd advise better surveys." For a second, neither of us moved. The lake behind us remained perfectly still. But tension settled across the shoreline heavier than fog. Finally, Victoria turned toward the workers. "Finish installation." Then she looked back at me. "We'll be discussing shoreline integration further at next month's county meeting." Integration. Another interesting word. People love soft words, when they're trying to take hard things. I watched her walk back toward the SUV.
Before getting inside, she paused.
Oh, and the community would appreciate fewer fishing boats near the southern docks. Some residents have complained. I almost laughed. Complained about fishing boats on a lake built around fishing. After she drove away, the workers finished the installation in uncomfortable silence. I didn't stop them, not because I accepted it, because sometimes people reveal more when they think they've already won. By noon, the sign stood fully installed on Carter's shoreline property. I sat alone at the end of Dock 7 watching sunlight ripple across the water. My grandfather built that dock himself in 1963. The nails were original. So were the cedar beams beneath it. I ran my hand across the weathered wood and remembered something he told me years ago during a storm. Never fight angry, Elias. I was 16 then. I asked him why. He said, because angry men rush, calm men finish. Out across the lake, I could see the rooftops of silver pines reflecting sunlight like polished coins. Big homes, fancy boats, private wine patios.
Perfect landscaping.
An entire neighborhood built on the illusion of exclusive lakeside living. And somewhere inside that neighborhood, people were probably reading brochures claiming they had private waterfront rights. Rights that didn't belong to them. I sat there until evening. The water darkened into deep blue beneath the setting sun. Birds drifted low across the shoreline. And one by one, lights began appearing across silver pines. Then my phone rang. Old Frank Delaney from the county clerk's office. His voice sounded uneasy. Elias. Yeah. You seen the new Silver Pines development maps?
No.
Long pause. You probably should. Something in his tone made my stomach tighten. Why? Another pause. Then he said quietly, they filed updated shoreline claims last week. I looked slowly toward the sign standing near the gravel road. The private waterfront sign glowing beneath sunset light. And that's when I realized something dangerous. They weren't confused anymore. They were preparing something. To be continue. Part 2 coming soon.